Let's go into this COVID-19 and figure out exactly what's going on. So the COVID-19 is the disease that is caused by the SARS coronavirus. Now SARS stands for Serious Acute Respiratory Syndrome, so it really isn't to do with the lungs. So here we have the SARS coronavirus. It's going to go into the lungs and it's going to attack the alveoli. So here we've zoomed in on an alveolus here. So the virus will come in, has a spike protein. It's going to use that to anchor itself onto the ACE2 or the angiotensin converting enzyme type 2, and it's going to release its positive single-stranded RNA into there. That's going to basically take over the cell's ability and causes viral replication and make more viral particles and everything. And then this type 2 pneumocyte is then going to release these mediators to recruit these macrophages. And the macrophage, the white blood cells, going to release these various cytokines, okay, interleukin 6, interleukin 1, TNF alpha, tumor necrosis factor alpha. That's going to go into the plasma and that's going to release neutrophils. That's going to increase some of the vasodilation permeability, so that neutrophils are going to now go into there. It's going to start creating a reactive oxygen species, and the reactive oxygen species are very damaging oxidative molecules that are going to, kill the viruses. Well, the virus is already dead, but kill everything, inhibit viral replication, and do exactly what we want them to do. So that's a very important part of all of this. But as this continues going, you're going to get more and more of this reactive oxygen species, more of the inflammation, you get more vasodilation, more capillary permeability. But because you actually are destroying your type 2 pneumocyte, well, the type 2 pneumocyte is what's important to make surfactant. If you don't have surfactant, your lungs aren't going to work correctly. So you don't have the reduced surface tension, so you have a decreased concentration. Plus, with the permeability, all the plasma is releasing out into the alveolus, and so now you have a collapsed alveolus. So, of course, you have a collapsed alveolus, you're going to have very difficult for gas exchange. You're going to have to work really hard to breathe. So you're going to have a very difficult time breathing with that problem. When this, because of all the reactive oxygen species, you're damaging the actual cell. So the whole entire alveolus will end up dying. And now you're going to try to be coughing that up, so you have a productive cough. So people are going to present with a cough and everything. Plus, with the interleukin 6, interleukin 1, these are going to go to the hypothalamus. That's going to control the body temperature. It's going to say, hey, let's increase the body temperature. That's going to cause a fever, so now people are going to have a fever. So all this is going to continue getting more and more inflammation. You get this systemic inflammation, so more vasodilation, and that's going to cause lower blood pressure, hypotension. So you're just going to feel weak and fatigue and everything, right? So you have this hypotension. Well, that's also going to cause low blood perfusion. Well, low blood perfusion meaning you're not going to get the oxygen-rich blood to your cells. So that's going to cause low oxygen levels or hypoxia, right? So now you're going to be short of breath. Plus, with this issue, you have short of breath, but also here, and that's going to activate the chemoreceptors. It's going to cause you to activate sympathetic nerve activation, so you're going to have a higher heart rate, for example. So you have fever, difficulty breathing, higher heart rate, a cough, all of these things. But you're not getting the nutrients there either. You're not being able to do metabolic waste removal. So that's going to cause cell death, right? Apoptosis, necrosis, autophagic cell death, the different pathways of cell death, and that essentially kill enough cells, you're going to cause multi-system organ failure. Now that's, of course, really bad. Like for the lungs, like this is what we're talking about right here. Also in the kidneys, you're not getting the right blood circulation and everything, so your kidneys start having problems. You have higher blood urea nitrogen levels. Your liver is also being damaged. You have ALT, AST, all these different tissue damage that's occurring on. And as this continues, you can get ours, the acute respiratory distress syndrome. Now, most people who die of, say, COVID-19 or other SARS-like viruses, they die because of the acute respiratory distress syndrome. Again, it's a disease of the lungs, and that, of course, all this leads to death. So we need to stop this, right? That's the whole goal, is what can we do to stop this? And of course, the idea is, okay, how do we inhibit viral replication? How do we inhibit all this stuff? How do we get our immune system going? Well, notice that a lot of the damage is occurring here from the reactive oxygen species and this inflammation that leads to systemic inflammation. Well, let's let's zoom in on this a little bit and understand it, because this is really what's going to help you to understand the rationale behind hydrogen gas, rationale for hydrogen gas. Why are they using it in clinical studies? Why is it having the effect that it does? It helps to explain all of this. Okay, so first, reactive oxygen species. Again, these are very oxidizing molecules. Well, actually, superoxide is reductive, but the point is they cause a lot of oxidative damage, okay? You cut your apple in half and it turns brown, that's oxidation, that's damage, it's rusting. And that same thing happens to your cells. It causes lipid peroxidation, DNA damage, all of these things. So we don't want to have an excessive amount of that. But these are also important. These neutrophils, they produce these reactive oxygen species. They express these NOx enzymes, or NADPH oxidase enzymes. And it takes oxygen, normal oxygen, and converts it to the radical superoxide. The mitochondria, electron transport chain, also produces as a source for superoxide production. This is also very important. Superoxide is what is, again, killing the pathogens, killing all the bad stuff, and helping you. So you really want superoxide. You just don't want too much of it. It's got to be regulated, right? Also nitric oxide. Well, nitric oxide is very critical. It's a vasodilator. Of course, that's really good, but you don't want too much of that, because that's going to cause misdistribution of blood flow and whole sorts of problems. So we need to have that regulated as well. But nitric oxide it can inhibit viral replication. It's extremely important for the immune system. But again, you don't want too much of it. You want to keep that regulated. Well, when you have this cycle going on, these are just getting higher and higher and higher and higher. And now you're just causing all sorts of necrosis and cell damage. You're inducing apoptosis, right? That's the cell death we talked about. Well, also when these get high, they react instantaneously to form none other but peroxynitrite. Peroxynitrite is literally like the most oxidizing, damaging molecule that there is. It is pernicious. It is terrible. It is a bad molecule. And not only that's a bad one, but then there's also the hydroxyl radical. The hydroxyl radical is actually the most cytotoxic reactive oxygen species. It's just bad. Both of these guys are just bad. That's why they're in the red color, because red means bad in this case. When these get high levels, they form peroxynitrite. Peroxynitrite can form the hydroxyl radical. Superoxide can also form the hydroxyl radical through a process called the Fenton reaction. Like there's iron and different things, it can cause us to catalyze. So I just want to point out that these guys right here, they do us no good. We do not want them. They cause cell death and everything. These guys, on the other hand, they're important for our immune system, for our function, everything. So we actually like them. We need them to be regulated, okay? Well, these enzymes are very critical to regulate these, and they get hyperactivated by the immune inflammatory response we'll talk about over here. So, but typically, let's talk about superoxide, for example. The body regulates this because superoxide normally is just, once it's done its magic, once it's done what it needs to do, it's quickly converted by superoxide dismutase, the body's antioxidant enzyme. It's converted by hydrogen peroxide. That's converted to water and oxygen by, say, catalase or glutathione peroxidase. It's no problem. The body can take care of this. These are our body's natural antioxidants, and they are regulated by what's called this NRF2 keep 1 system. Okay, so here we have like a cell, and here's the nucleus. Okay, look, here's your mitochondria. Okay, but what can happen is that NRF2 keep 1 is a transcription factor that when it gets activated, check this out. When NRF2 keep 1 gets activated, it goes into the nucleus and binds to the ARE, the antioxidant response element, or ERE, the electrified response element. But here it binds and induces the translation, transcription, production of the body's natural antioxidants, like your glutathione, your catalase, your superoxide dismutase, your glutathione peroxidase. In fact, NRF2 regulates over 200 different cytoprotective proteins and enzymes. Okay, this is the phase 2 enzymes, detoxification and antioxidation. It's all right here with the NRF2 keep 1 system. Well, when you have an attack like this, all your superoxide dismutase, your catalase, all this stuff that's going to control everything is like totally depleted. It gets gone, and that's why you're getting it gets gone. That's funny. You get such a depletion going on here that you're quickly going to have necrosis and apoptosis, cell death, and everything. So that's why NRF2 is so important. Well, look what happens here. So now let's talk about hydrogen a little bit. Molecular hydrogen actually has the ability to activate the NR2 keep 1 pathway. And when it can activate the NR2 keep 1 pathway, it's going to help to replenish and maintain that redox homeostasis of your glutathione, your superoxide dismutase, your catalase, like I said, over 200 cytoprotector proteins and enzymes. And as it does that, it's going to help to maintain this whole thing. Okay, so that's one critical aspect. Another critical aspect is hydrogen can also regulate this area over here. It can actually regulate the NADPH oxidase system. It can actually down-regulate this, so you actually get less superoxide production. If it's too much, for example, it can help bring that down, as well as regulate the nitric oxide synthase enzymes, has regulation in the mitochondria. Actually, some really neat benefits in the mitochondria that we're finding with the hydrogen gas. So here, hydrogen is able to take care of the ROS. Oh, and these guys right here. So hydrogen actually can selectively reduce these guys, the hydroxyl radical and the peroxynitrite. Okay. Now consider, see, other antioxidants, say vitamin C or vitamin E or whichever ones we're talking about, there are some potential problems because in some ways, just based upon reaction kinetics or stoichiometry or different things, not stoichiometry, but those things can react indiscriminately with things like superoxide or nitric oxide. Okay, hydrogen gas can actually not react with nitric oxide or superoxide. The only things it can react with are these very dangerous and very damaging oxidants, hydroxyl radical and peroxynitrite. It can't react here, but it can selectively reduce these guys. It can increase NRF2 activation to increase your body's natural antioxidants, and it can regulate the enzymes, the very enzymes that are producing these. So it's a very good regulatory system of what hydrogen gas can do, okay? And consider it is the smallest molecule, smaller than oxygen, so it's able to diffuse into the cell, into the nucleus, into wherever, very easily, where it can have these regulations, okay? Okay, so now let's go to the inflammation, okay? During this process, we get what's called the cytokine storm. That's when we have just this huge upregulation of all these cytokines, and we have tons of problems going on here, okay? So, for example, interleukin 6, interleukin 4, T2 necrosis factor alpha. Well, these are regulated by other transcription factors like NF-kappa B, NFAT, STAT1, or STAT3. These transcription factors regulate and increase the production of all of these. Well, guess what activates these? Reactive oxygen species. Okay? Well, reactive oxygen species activate these guys, and guess what these guys can produce? Well, if you guess reactive oxygen species, you go to the head of the class. Because that's right. All of this is this whole cycle. And you can see it's a vicious cycle. It just keeps on getting worse and worse and worse until you get more cell death, which results in multi-system organ failure, which results in, well, eventually death. If we don't stop this, we have to stop this cycle. So hydrogen gas over here, we've actually demonstrated that hydrogen has an inhibitory role or a regulatory role in regulating these guys, which are going to regulate the actual inflammatory cytokines. So we've actually done several studies showing, we and as well as many other colleagues and researchers, and many papers have demonstrated that hydrogen has a great anti-inflammatory effects, decreasing interleukin 6. Okay, that's a very potent pro-inflammatory cytokine. So hydrogen can regulate NF-κB, NFAT. It's going to decrease these cytokines. And we're seeing in the research that hydrogen can therefore decrease, for example, lipopolysaccharide-induced hypotension, decreasing some of these other symptomology here because it's decreasing this inflammation, it's decreasing the oxidative damage, the oxidative stress that's going on. So, so to sum it all up together, this is how the virus progresses, leading to reactive oxygen species and inflammation. That's going to cause all the way to cell death, multi-system organ failure, and eventually, potentially death, right? And hydrogen gas, being a very simple, small molecule, we're showing it can help to regulate the redox status of the cell by selectively reducing the very bad guys, help to regulate and improve the NRF2 keep 1 pathway to maintain our body's redox homeostasis, and also has regulatory effects with the inflammation to lower chronic, harmful systemic inflammation. it's by regulating everything and not just decreasing it or inhibiting it or something, because that's not what we want to do. We need all of these things. This is our immune system. We don't want to just get rid of it. Yes, it is what is killing us, but it is also very important that we have so that we can get better. So that is kind of that is the idea between hydrogen gas and its rationale for COVID-19. So anyway, I hope this made sense. I hope you're able to learn something from this. And we'll, like I said, check out the literature. We'll post the clinical trials, when they get done. And thank you very much.